Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Wire Wrap. I'm Jahnavi and with me today I have Sangeeta Barooah Pisharoty, who's the National Affairs Editor of The Wire, and Siddharth Varadarajan, Founding Editor of The Wire. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you.
Now the biggest news this week is obviously the Indian military action on 9 targets in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, which happened early in the hours of Wednesday. These were targeted attacks on what India has said is terrorist infrastructure bases of the Lashkar-e-Tayyaba and the Jaish-e-Mohammad. And the Indian government has said that this action was very specifically targeted to avoid damage to any civilian or military property or lives. Political parties have stood by the government and the armed forces in this moment where the government has said that its response to the Pahalgam terror attack has been restrained and has been very measured. What has happened since then, though, all of Wednesday saw very intense cross-border shelling. We saw 16 Indian civilians and 1 soldier lose their lives in this Pakistani shelling. Just now we have had a statement just before we started recording from the Indian government which says that last night Pakistan tried to attack some military bases in India and India managed to neutralize the attack, and in retaliation India has sent some drones to Pakistan and said that India has managed to destroy an air defense base in Lahore. We don't know what's going to come next from Pakistan. There have been varying reports. They've said that they managed to bring down 5 Indian fighter jets in the Wednesday morning action, which India has not said anything about. While the defense minister said that if India does not retaliate further, then Pakistan is also not willing to let this violence stop at this point. The National Security Commission had a rather different statement saying that Pakistan is reserving its right to retaliate and that India's action was entirely unprovoked and unjustified. So tensions remain high. We've seen mock drills, we've seen people who are living in border areas having to evacuate and move, and flights from a number of Indian airports have been suspended till May 10th. Before we go into what comes next, Siddharth, can you talk a little bit about what we've seen so far, particularly what we're hearing today? What does the scenario look like?
So we began to get reports from the Pakistani side from early this morning of some kind of explosions, some kind of skirmishes above the airspace in Lahore. And Pakistani websites reported this in a sort of confused way. I think the Indian government statement, which came out roughly at about 1 in the afternoon, 2 in the afternoon, has explained that since last night, Pakistan, in its supposed retaliatory move against the strikes that took place Wednesday morning, has attempted to target Indian defense installations pretty much along the entire extent of the border and line of control. Some of the places mentioned by the Indian MOD statement stretch all the way from Jammu and Kashmir, Avantipura, which is army base, all the way down to Gujarat. So, were these attempted incursions that India detected early on the basis of electronic signatures and then attempted some kind of preemptive measure by way of drones? Frankly, we don't know. There's no report of Pakistani planes coming across to this side last night or today. So I presume it's some kind of a preemptive action that India took once it saw that attacks from certain locations were likely to be launched. And the Pakistani Defense Ministry, the DG ISPR, their military spokesman, has claimed that they have shot down 25 Indian drones. These are Israeli-made drones, and there's again no official confirmation. Although the Indian Defense Ministry statement says that the debris of one of these drones that was recovered is part of this attempt by India to neutralize Pakistani offensive action. So that's where things stand in terms of what the two governments have said, what the two sides have said. What we can say with some degree of certainty, looking at this, putting on the hat of an analyst, is that the Indian desire to avoid escalation, and this was sort of hard-baked into the statement issued by the MOD, and the selection of targets that they said, all of these were what India identified as part of the terrorist infrastructure, not meant to be any civilian target, and certainly no military target. This carefully thought through process of picking on very, very specific targets with the aim of ensuring that you don't escalate. This process may be on the verge of breaking down, in the sense that the Pakistani side, yesterday, you pointed to the Pakistani defense minister's statement. It's not clear how much weight he carries, quite frankly, in the Pakistani system. Stalin's old joke about the Pope, how many divisions does he have? The Pakistani military does not take orders from the Pakistani defense minister, but he certainly floated this idea that Pakistan, having said or having claimed that they've shot down 5 Indian aircraft, again this is not confirmed by the Indian side or even responded to, but the Pakistani government is saying that, and so this view which the defense minister gave was that having done that, if India does not escalate any further, then this could be regarded as action enough. The NSC statement kind of contradicts that, and frankly, the NSC statement has a certain, I can understand the logic of why they feel this is not enough, because in their it's very clear that India was able to penetrate quite deep into Pakistan, hitting targets in Lahore, Bahawalpur, deep inside Punjab as far as Bahawalpur is concerned, at least 100 kilometers in. And I think the Pakistani military would be restless and feel that unless some kind of counter-strike is launched, the Indian side may feel that this is something they can keep doing. So even though the Pakistanis say and they believe that Indian planes have been shot down, there's every reason to believe that they're not going to be satisfied with that. And so I think everybody expects some kind of Pakistani military. On the Indian side, everybody was expecting it. As per the Indian MOD statement, it seems that we saw the initial attempt late last night or early today, although the government didn't speak about it until news began to emerge from Pakistan of Indian drones having been shot down. So it's clear that we are now, kind of keenly poised, where Pakistan is likely to, do what the Indian government has said they are trying to do, which is to target Indian installations. And the government of India is being preemptive now, right? So prior to the early morning strikes against 9 locations, India consciously chose not to target any Pakistani military installation, right? And that included Pakistani air defenses, right? You would imagine that when you are launching a military operation, using a combination of assets, but certainly in this case, India was using its air force, even though we didn't fly across the border, right? But the border is just a line. At the end of the day, once you're airborne, you're vulnerable. Many militaries would have thought it prudent that you engage with and neutralize air defenses of the other side, right? So that they are not able to respond. India, for obvious reasons, decided that it wouldn't do that because it didn't want to target Pakistani military installations. Perhaps now we are at a phase where India knows that you can't get by without doing that kind of targeting. And the justification or the plausible, the explanation would be that, look, if Pakistan is not targeting Indian military installations, then we have no option but to do the same. But that's precisely what we had hoped to avoid, and the MOD when it said that, non-escalatory approach. So I'm afraid the idea or belief that India could do something kinetic, something military, against targets and contain the escalation, we are now testing the limits of that theory. Things may still be contained. It's possible, and it's possible that both Pakistan and India will take the first off-ramp that they see. But it's equally possible, given, I would say, political factors at play, not just in India, but also in Pakistan, that this may be not so simple.
Before we go further, I just want to go back to what you were saying about, the nature of this attack and also the way that India has tried to portray it. Vikram Misri was very clear in his public statement yesterday. A lot of analysts and security experts have talked about how this has been quite different from Balakot, in that in this instance, we have journalists who were taken to Muridke to see the damage that was done.
By the Pakistanis, right? Yeah.
We have the Jaish chief, Masood Azhar, saying himself reportedly that 10 members of his family and 4 of his associates were killed in Bahawalpur. Siddharth, do you think that militarily it was more successful, or the fact that the escalation was not contained now puts that into question?
So I have 2 explanations for the changed response on the Pakistani side to Balakot and to this series of attacks. Either Balakot was hugely successful, the way the Indian side said it was, right? I think Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh had made this claim that 300 cell phones of militants went silent, and this proves that they were killed in that strike. Pakistan said nothing of the sort happened. They said that trees were hit, but they never allowed open access to that place. So either the Indian claim is true, and that's why they didn't take people there, or Pakistan, for a variety of reasons, decided that there's no point in tom-tomming that. And since they had shot down an Indian plane, got hold of an Indian pilot, and were able to, in a sense, contain, the Pakistani claim that nothing was hit in Balakot also allowed them to then respond militarily in such a way that they fired missiles at a location which didn't cause any casualties, right? And that allowed them to walk away. So either that, so that's explanation number one. Explanation number two is that, the Balakot was not as successful as India had said it was. And I would say a more compelling, the reason why that's perhaps a more compelling theory, at least from the Indian, signaling or messaging point of view, is that this time the Indian side has been rather more forthcoming in terms of providing videography and evidence and so on, right? So in 2019, questions by the opposition and by journalists for corroborating evidence of the success of the strikes were met with angry responses by the government, which said, "Who are you to ask? You can't question the army. We're not going to show you evidence," etc. And the whole idea of evidence was kind of poo-pooed. This time, the evidence is being presented up front, right? So I suspect that's because the strikes were successful, in the sense that certainly in the case of Bahawalpur and Muridke, right, where you were targeting. I'm not sure how, frankly speaking, how effective the demolition of those structures will prove to be in terms of killing, men who are likely to launch armed attacks on India, right? I would imagine any prudent terrorist leader in Pakistan, certainly Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar would have known that in the event of an Indian attack post Pahalgam, Bahawalpur and Muridke would be targets number 1 and 2, right? So they would have probably moved away a lot of their fighters if that's where the fighters were. But yeah, I mean, physically you have evidence to show that, and Masood Azhar having lost his family members and coming out and saying this is another indication that some damage has been wrought, right? So I think that Balakot, we're not sure what the impact was. Here you can see a very definite impact, and the Pakistani side is also forthcoming in terms of casualties. I think the official casualty figure is now perhaps close to 40. Yes. And if we go by what Masood Azhar said, 10 relatives, 4 what he said close associates, so 14, at least 14 people we know are individuals linked to Masood Azhar, Jaish-e-Mohammad. So there is a difference, I think, in terms of the quote unquote success of this. As for the long-term military success and success from a security point of view, is this going to serve as an effective deterrent against further terrorist attacks, or will it have the opposite effect? If it has a deterrent effect, how long will it last? These are all open questions.
Sangeeta, is anything you'd like to add to what he
just
said?
to begin from from what Siddharth's been saying, it's like a I mean, when we started, it was like from the Indian side, it was said that they're keeping Pakistan, the state, and terrorism very different. But now while we are seeing the Pakistan responding, it's almost like they're merging the two. It seems, at least it's looking like that. So that's one observation I have. And the other thing about Balakot is also, one of our pilots was caught, and there was. They could show it, tom it to us, and so that those things we don't see this time. Okay, though of course government of India is it's silent so far on whether they have actually shot down those aircrafts and all that. So those questions remain, and these questions remain also because it was supposedly a press briefing, but no questions were allowed to be asked. So this is a crucial time. I mean, like even during Kargil and other thing, it went on for 3 months, but there were press briefings every day, and journalists were allowed to ask questions. But that has not happened. So many of those things are still hanging in the air. So, and we'll see how it goes. Like, we are now depending only on the statements that the government is issuing, ministry giving out, and then Rajnath Singh, the defense minister, saying 100 terrorists killed and all that. So you are making all of these claims, but then there are counter claims. So it's like by the time it all clears up, it will take quite a while, I guess.
I want to talk a little bit also about how this is playing out domestically. As I mentioned before, politicians from across party lines have sort of come together on this to say that, we stand with the armed forces, we stand with the Indian government. There was an all-party meeting earlier today where again the same message sort of came out, though some Congress leaders did question why the Prime Minister was not present at this meeting, similar to how he was not present at the all-party meeting right after the Pahalgam attack. But in terms of the Bharatiya Janata Party and its social media handles and platforms, they, right after what happened on Wednesday morning, which they have termed Operation Sindoor, they very much centered the Prime Minister in all of their messaging about this. Of course, there was first this very evocative banner that is now doing the rounds everywhere, saying Operation Sindoor with this bowl of spirit Sindoor. But there was also this video, for instance, in which they used the voiceover of Liam Neeson from Taken, saying that, I choose my targets myself and I kill them all, with footage of the Prime Minister. We saw similar messaging also after Balakot, where a lot of the credit was given to an individual, and that was right before the 2019 general elections. We're not in that sort of scenario right now. But can I ask you both to comment a little bit about how this is playing out politically?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, like when you have a press conference, what are you projecting? You are showing two women officers coming and giving out details of, the, as Siddharth said, videography, everything was all, proof was shown. But that government is making a difference. What we understood was that it is army was given the credit. But when you go to the BJP handles, say X handles or Facebook or other hundreds of thousands of messages coming to people's WhatsApp, so there you see the man who led the whole thing from the front was the Prime Minister. Okay, of course he is we are a democracy, a civilian government. He will have to give go ahead to all these operations, but no credit. I don't see any credit being given to the Indian Army or anything like that. So that is something I feel that it is also playing to their constituency, that because after Pahalgam, what I've understood, what I've observed is that the Modi's strongman image, that Modi hai to mumkin hai, that image was getting a hit. So, and because people were not, he needed a different script. He had followed, initially started with the same script. He had gone to the rally and then he said, I will go and chase them till the end of the earth and all that. And then he went to Man Ki Baat. He skipped the all-party meeting, because if you understand Modi's persona well, you will know that he will not come to a meeting where there's opposition waiting for him to answer questions. This is precisely perhaps the reason that he didn't attend the second one, which was held today. But he gave a message. There was a message that was read out, but he didn't come. Okay, I just like it, kind of an aberration, I would say, if you look at the history of these kind of meetings. Okay, so he didn't come, because why would he not come? People would think that so far we are looking at as Operation Sindoor as a successful operation. So then why didn't he come? Because he still is vulnerable to be to questions from the opposition. There would be opposition leaders, they would ask questions, perhaps on security or something like that, and if he doesn't reply also, they may come out and see, we asked these questions but Prime Minister didn't reply. So he is being shielded by that. There's no denying to this, that there will be there's a political component to this Operation Sindoor, and starting from the name that was also used.
The thing is that in any government which prosecutes a war, the political signal emanates from the top, right? So the decision to react in a certain way clearly is that of the Prime Minister and his cabinet. And that was reflected in, I suppose, the statement put out after one of his meetings with the heads of the three services, and then you had the CCS, which basically spoke about the military being told to plan and do whatever it felt was appropriate, right? So that was, that's the way the system works. What Mr. Modi is trying to do and what the BJP is trying to project is that Mr. Modi is kind of the commander in the field. So the only plausible explanation you can give for why Mr. Modi wouldn't be at an all-party meeting is that he's down in the trenches, planning minute by minute India's military response, India's military operations, which is not the role of a prime minister, right? You have service chiefs, you have the CDS, you have people who are whose job it is, whose professional job it is, and we know that in reality that's what's happening. But this idea that you want to project a larger-than-life persona, you see this reflected, I would say, in pretty much all the channels that I tuned into yesterday. The kind of visuals they were showing Modi in a uniform. One of the channels had him wearing dark glasses and Air Force sort of outfit, and this conscious attempt to link what's happened and what will happen to the brilliance and glory of this one individual. I think it's the political messaging is very clear. I would have expected that this would follow in due course. Don't forget that after Pulwama and Balakot, the Prime Minister himself committed what in my view was a grave offence of seeking votes in the name of soldiers who were killed. And there are clips to that effect which you can still see everywhere. And the Election Commission never pulled him up, and he never apologized for doing that. So what he will do in the future, we know. But it's a bit, I think, tactless, and frankly speaking, it undermines the national spirit to not have the Prime Minister, who is the leader of the country, taking part in an all-party meeting. What's the purpose of an all-party meeting? The purpose of an all-party meeting, sure, it's a platform where the opposition and the government can speak freely and frankly, right?
Also to show the unity.
Exactly, but it's also a platform where you tell the whole world that whatever our political differences, we are confronting this problem as one,
together,
right?
as a nation.
So that message to the world that we are united, and we can't be divided on the basis of our different political or ideological platforms, is a message that needs to get across. And what better way to do that than an all-party meeting, which comes out with a unified, position or statement, and that required Mr. Modi's presence. Frankly, I don't know why he didn't attend the first one. I don't know why he has not attended this, other than to, project the sense, or to help that sort of the party propaganda mills circulate this idea that he is himself too busy because he is involved in the day-to-day, the minute-by-minute execution of the military response, which he's not. So I think that this indication of the politicization of the campaign is something which is disturbing, and something that Sangeeta said about the briefing. I don't know whether you guys read Saryu Pani's piece that The Wire published today, where she points, points to the difference between the party political messaging on the one hand, which is in a way encapsulated by the name of the Operation Sindoor, right? And the kind of messaging that the government's official spokesperson, in this case Vikram Misri, who's the Foreign Secretary, put out through his statement, very sober, mature statement at the press conference, right? So Sindoor is a reminder, and the name has obviously been chosen as a reminder to the wider public that the terrorists who killed people at Pahalgam selected their targets on a communal basis. The response of many folks in the military, and there's this very moving video by a former colonel, former counter-terrorism expert, who's having a discussion with his son, where he says that he views the people killed at Pahalgam as Indians. And when the son says, but weren't they asked whether they were Hindus or not? And he says they were, but this was a tactic of the enemy to divide us, to polarize us, right? So And I think that the colonel is absolutely right. If you think about the logic behind the Lashkar terrorists doing this, right, it was precisely to kind of create a schism in Indian society. And I got the sense that, and when Vikram Misri said yesterday that the aim was to promote communal discord.
And they failed.
And they failed because of the government and the people. To my mind, this was the first time I was hearing the government of India, actually flagging this and putting it out that, communal discord is what they wanted. And the subtext is that, if you're a patriotic Indian, you have to reject and oppose everybody who is using this to communalize the country. And we know who those people are, right? So there's this dissonance between what the MEA is officially saying and what the kind of a political overlay that's being attempted through the naming of the operation. Saryu Pani points out Uri, Balakot, all these earlier operations didn't have this kind of an overloaded name. They were very matter of fact, they were sort of professionally named, shall I say. There was no political process involved there.
What the Foreign Secretary said about how they wanted to divide and they failed, it's actually similar to what one of the women who was widowed at Pahalgam's, Himanshi Narwal, said in a video where she said that, we want peace, we don't want people to go against Indian Muslims and Kashmiris. Her husband was a lieutenant in the Indian Navy and they were on their honeymoon. It was a very tragic story, and one of the most stark images to come out of that attack was her sitting next to his body. So I suppose she would be one of the people this so-called Operation Sindoor was named after. But what happened when she said the very same thing that Vikram Misri is now saying was that she was horrendously trolled online by supporters of the ruling regime and people who back that ideology, and no one really from the official machinery came out in support of her except a sort of tepid response from the National Commission for Women, which just said that no one should be blamed for their ideological so it's like you said, it is quite stark, and definitely there are two distinct things happening here where a woman in whose name you are saying you are doing this is being attacked and trolled for saying the same thing that you are now saying, and then no one really stands behind her officially in that way.
And also, Janvi, one thing, and like one way of looking at it is also that it needed a country like Pakistan to remind us or to tell us that, to strike at us, to remember that we are actually a different country. We are not like Pakistan. I mean, this is when Mystery was saying this. This was my first thought. I was just thinking. I said we are a very different country, and we are any day a greater country than what is like. And if you look at the communal thing that has been going on, the history of it in Pakistan and all that. But of course, in the last 10 years, we are seeing a very different thing unrolling here. And then Pakistan is used to actually remind us that we are a different country. So this is my first thought. Another thing, Janvi, I just want to add to this was that in this whole persona recreation after Pahalgam of Modi, I've been checking all the audiovisual content of the BJP handles on X and other social media platforms. Of course, there are a lot of these common things that have been made and circulated, which has been used by everyone, and plus enthused by that. Perhaps they are also got their new own things done, and so there's a variety of it. But most of it, what I see is that he single-handedly is fighting terrorism. Yeah, that is something that I see. Nobody is supporting terrorism. Nobody supports terrorism, and the previous governments also have fought terrorism. So this is something that I see that he is that has been projected. And if you add that to what the Home Minister has recently said, that by 31st of March 2026, no Maoist or left extremist movement will be there. Everything will be, that extremism will be in our control. And I think it was a kind of I found that to be a quite strange statement. Nobody supports terrorism, we don't. But the thing is that to be giving a date like that this is what it is like that. So to be also then looking at this Operation Sindoor as this is going to end terrorism, will it? So these kind of questions remain. And plus the other other end to that is also we need to look at is also that how many terrorists who have been extradited from other countries. We're getting say Rana scum, but if you read G.K. Pillai's interview to the Hindu's Vijayata Singh, he said that he's a rookie, he's a small guy who's played a small role there, but the main guy was not allowed to be brought to extradited to India by the United States. So these are things that we look at. This is India expects that from a government. So these are things are not taken to the people, but it actually grandstanding takes place in this kind of thing. So we need to remember that nobody supports terrorism, everybody is against that, but it's also a political messaging is also being pushed through this operation.
Before we close today, I'd also like us to talk about an internal security matter that India has been facing that does not get the same kind of attention, which is what has been happening in Manipur. May 3 this year marked 2 years since the violence broke out. More than 250 people have died in the ethnic conflict. Tens of thousands were displaced. Many of them are still living in relief camps across the state. And we've had reporting on this in the wire. The state of these camps is extremely dismal. People are living very difficult lives. Children aren't able to go to school. People don't have work. They aren't able to earn. The state remains completely divided. The Kuki and Meitei communities are living in separate areas, not able to travel. Earlier this week also there was a hearing in the Manipur audio tapes case, and these were tapes that were recorded in private meetings where a voice purportedly belonging to former Chief Minister N. Biren Singh is saying very troubling things about the violence, though he has denied that this is his voice, but some forensic investigations by the Truth Lab say differently, that 95% it seems like it's his voice. Sangeeta, could you talk us through what's happening in court and also what the situation in the state is looking like today?
See, to start with, the last hearing was the outgoing CJI's last. People are talking about how the Waqf board case has been pushed to his successor, but so is also this important case, Manipur being done that. And he's given this date on the week of 21st July. So that much time was sought by the Solicitor General. And why did he seek that much time? Because he's saying that some investigation is going on. See, initially he was trying to also malign the petitioner. It's a cookie group, human rights group, so civil society group. So they said that it's he was trying to do that, and then very interestingly, the CJI said that let's not protect someone if they have done wrongdoing. So Janvi, I was not in the court, so I heard it from the counsel for the cookie side, and I was just looking at Biden's. Lot of stories have come out, so it was only bar and bench where I found this line, but and everywhere else that this line was missing, and it's a very crucial line. Okay, but everybody talked about what that final. It was an oral thing, but finally it was again an oral order said that the court has actually asked for a fresh CFL report. Okay, uh, um, forensic lab report on the audio, but earlier it was the request of the government of India that a government owned lab was asked to give a fresh look, but then they kept buying time. And now that when they were also allowed to submit the report in a sealed cover, which is now you don't know what the other side is, doesn't know what's happening, so that's was allowed. What I mean to say is that so much of leeway was given. Okay, but even then nothing seemed to have come from this last hearing, and now the government has been given time till 21st of July, that starting that week, to submit a fresh report. So let's see what happens. We will like keeping a keen eye on this, because not because that the wire put it out first in public interest, those audio tapes, but it also involves a chief minister who was mandated by the constitution to protect everybody's lives, and the question hangs whether he did his job as per the constitution. So it's a very important question that we are waiting to hear from that judgment will bring us close to that. So that's the reason we are watching it, and we can only wait and watch.
Can I be very blunt and link Manipur to the earlier part of our discussion? India is on the verge of fighting a major conflict with Pakistan if things continue to deteriorate because of the killing of 26 civilians at Pahalgam. And on the eastern side of India, you have a situation where more than 200 people have been killed. And you have important oral evidence that implicates the chief minister, who belongs to the ruling party, in violent activities, in the looting of arms, in the turning of a blind eye to violent activities of one kind or the other. Violence that has taken the lives of people, displaced tens of thousands, including members of the Kuki community, the Methi community, which is the community that the former Chief Minister Biren Singh claims to represent and speak on behalf of. The fact is that the violence in Manipur has taken a toll on both Methi and Kukis.
Right.
It has the state belongs to them, belongs to everybody who is part of Manipur, Nagas as well, the Nagas who live in Manipur, and this division, attempt to divide a state and a people on the basis of ethnicity is something which, there's tons of evidence to show the complicity of Biren Singh, the ruling party, and the BJP in Manipur. So you have this contrast, right, where the union government is least bothered. It took you nearly 2 years to get rid of the chief minister.
Yeah.
Prime Minister has not visited. Like, he has not gone to an all-party meeting. Has not gone to a state where so many people have been killed. You have central government rule. You have president's rule. There's no talk of allowing the assembly to convene again. There's no talk of having elections so that people can choose their representatives. So you have this complete dysfunctionality and lack of initiative to restore peace on the eastern side. And on the west, you are, pursuing a certain course of action. So this contrast, it tells us something about, how politics is actually in command here. That there is a certain approach to law and order in this country which is more geared towards, perhaps the political agenda of the ruling party than actually resolving problems. And this is what's worrying.
And two other things I want to add to this as far as Manipur is concerned. For me, what stood out was number one was that the sexual assault of those two women, and we had never seen this kind of. We've seen ethnic conflict in my region everywhere, every state has seen, but we had not seen this kind of sexual assault as part of an ethnic conflict. In the region, what you normally see, the narrative is the normal thing that you see is protest against alleged sexual assault by the armed forces. So that's something was very different for me. And the second thing is actually also quite worrying, which is we saw a new form of an armed conflict this time with, say, Arambai Tengol and Methi Lipun also, perhaps. I'm not too
vigilante
sure.
Groups.
But this
Salwa
vigilante groups,
Judumization,
vigilante groups, which have the fluidity to, when there is a conflict, you loot arms and then you become the part of the armed mob, and then when the conflict wanes a little, you become a social group playing football. So this is something we had not seen in the Northeast, and that was why the organizations, these outfits, could be banned by the parliament. Okay, and there are a lot of parliament banned Meitei groups also. None of the Meitei groups have come actually for discussion, so they are all banned. But what we are seeing rising from the valley of Imphal is now a new form of armed group, which straddles that entire space. So how the government of India is also actually going to deal with it, it's a huge challenge for Mr. Bhalla now. So that is what I am actually, for me, that is something which is across, for any Northeast watcher, this is something that stands out.
Okay, we'll draw to a close for today, but we will be following what's going on actively on our YouTube channel and our website. So thank you all for watching.